Let me just give you some very basic, extremely basic information about music publishing. Obviously, this Expo is run by ASCAP, and ASCAP is one of the organizations that pays publishers and writers lots of money for the performance of their songs, as well as the other performing rights societies. But performances and mechanicals are the two largest segments of revenue that music publishers receive. Different for every music publisher as to what the combinations are, whether one gets more in performances or one gets more in mechanicals. It's a fairly heavily regulated industry for a small industry. We have the copyright law, Section 115, which gives us the mechanical right, the mechanical rate, which is a maximum mechanical rate. And that is decided either by industry negotiations or by a rate court. And just to put you in the picture, in 1909, when I first started in the publishing business, the rate was 2 cents. We're now 100 years later, and the rate is 9.1 cents. So think about that for a minute. I don't think we've come a long way, but we're happy to be able to stay at the 9.1 cent. At the very beginning, there was basically one kind of mechanical royalty for the manufacture and distribution of a song on a sound carrier, be it a tape, a vinyl record, a shellac record, a CD, etc. Now there are many more 115 mechanical royalties for ringtones, for temporary downloads, for on-demand streaming. So the world has gotten a bit more complicated. The publishers collect mechanical royalties and pay them to writers based on the contractual arrangement that they have with them. And the performing rights money is paid by ASCAP separately to publishers and to songwriters. The other mainstream area of revenue are synchronization rights, and smaller than that, print music rights. And that just brings up one thing to indicate that really music publishing for the guys up here is a misnomer, because they don't really print and publish anything. They have the right to do it, and they license that right to several large companies who specialize in printing and selling music.
At Sony, our mechanical revenue has fallen from a high of almost 65% down to about 35%. Now that sounds ominous, but the good news is that the performing rights income has grown dramatically over that period of time with the advent of better collection methods, more broadcast opportunities, and more value for publishers and writers in the performing rights area. In addition to that, synchronization, which is the use of songs with visual images, and it's taken on more of a meaning than just that. So the use of music in film, the use of music in TV, the use of music in commercials, karaoke, anything that synchronizes the sound of music has also grown dramatically. The revenue has become significant. There are more and more large commercials. We are, of course, subject to issues relating to the general economy. We've all read that advertising revenue is down, and so that could have an impact on us in some ways. But by and large, that's the major differences. Of course, there is a difference in the mechanical rate in 1999. We also weren't faced with a digital world, and We weren't competing against free music or internet piracy. It was a very simplistic world, but I think that today's world is challenging, and music publishing is surviving quite well in that.
In 1999, and all through the period before that, the principal way that people heard new music was through the intervention of the record industry. They would find artists and they would promote them, and they would create demand for the records, and they'd sell millions of them, and it was a very effective way of creating tremendous value for songwriters and others. In the intervening period, piracy, the effects of rather remarkable changes in the structure of the industry, the record industry is playing less of that role, and and publishers are playing a greater part of that role, finding ways of exposing music to larger and larger groups of consumers, so that there is demand for that music, so that there's an outlet for the talent that many of you have, and so the structure of the business is shifting, and we've become much more creatively active. We've always been active in understanding what music will resonate with consumers, but we're now becoming much more active in getting that music into the marketplace, making people aware of it. So then an audience and a fan base develops, and economics then follows. And I think that's, for me, that is it's obviously a great challenge for the music publishing industry, but it's also a tremendous opportunity. It gives us the ability to make music enter people's lives in new and different ways, and not the singular way of a record that gets promoted into a record store and onto radio. And we see that every day. Lots of the music that we all represent is first heard by being synchronized on a television show. It's often introduced in a video game as opposed to in a traditional recording. And we're all trying to find ways to get our music that we represent, your music, to consumers in each of the new ways that consumers want to acquire it.
Irwin didn't accidentally pick 1999. That was the peak of compact disc sales. And the big difference between then and now, I was in a corporate position at Warner in 1999, and I know that both from the recorded music perspective and music publishing, people were looking into the future as if it was going to be more of the same. And instead, there was, as we know, a dramatic change, internet piracy, et cetera. Whereas, and everybody has had to grapple with those effects. But I feel in 2009 that we're actually quite realistic about looking at the future. And I for one, am quite optimistic about the publishing future. How many people have seen that video of the Scottish woman singing the song from Les Mis? Okay, so you're among the 42 million people that watched it on YouTube. I mean, there's that's a song, right? A song written 20 years ago, and unfortunately not one of my songs, but that gives you a sense of the power of new technology to make music known. Roger was alluding to the old structure where you particularly depended on a record company to do it. It was a record company to interest radio and things, a record company to spend marketing money, and that's how you found out about it. Now here's something that, I guess it started on English television, and then it just ricochets around the world. And if you look at that, YouTube will lead you to 15 other people who've also sung the song in English, and probably if you look further, people who sing it in all sorts of other languages. That, for the publisher of that song, for the writer of that song, that could ultimately be a big economic event. The challenge for for all of us in this industry is how do you get to the economic promised land as a result of all that activity. But the fact that there's that kind of infrastructure, that a great song can be so instantly renewed in that way is obviously something we've never seen. Something we've never seen before.
I would like to focus it maybe on new artists and new songwriters and what's changed over the 10 years. And some of that's been touched on, which is publishers I think tended to look to major label signings as a very primary source of new artists for us. And all that's changing. And now there are, on the one hand, the digital revolution has, we know the pain of piracy, et cetera, but it's also made it, it's a new entry point. And new artists are now being discovered off of MySpace and off of YouTube. And you've got a classical orchestra that was just put together with musicians auditioning on YouTube. Great idea. You've got successful artists who major labels are signing because they've gotten X amount of plays on MySpace, and you have a whole there's a whole other business model out there of artists that are putting out their own CDs, their services that will release them digitally for you, and you can actually make some money. So, you're probably not going to achieve great success. I think the major label model is still the one that can break an artist on what we consider a major level and really kind of sell big numbers. But I think it's empowered new artists and new songwriters in some really interesting ways, and also made it more challenging for us because now the model isn't look for the act that signed a major label and collect, what's their mechanical rate and, how much are they going to sell and how, you're going to recoup the deal. That model is changing. And now it's about trying to figure out how many plays did they get on YouTube and MySpace. Does a publisher have a deal in place so we're actually going to get paid a royalty from YouTube and MySpace? What does 1 million plays on those sites mean in terms of revenue? And what are the other knock-on effects? And what kind of, does this artist have potential in terms of ringtone sales? And where's the ringtone market going to be in 2 years? And is there a genre of music? Does it do well in terms of ringtones? So it's really created a whole different set of questions that we ask, and it's a whole new equation. And on the one hand, it's empowering new talent and giving new opportunity to new talent. On the other hand, I think it's made it more challenging because, the new avenues that we know haven't really yet been shown to be have the proven revenue drivers that we, in terms of business people, and I think in terms of trying to make a living at it, are able need to rely on.